Hi, it's a beautiful day today. All the bad weather's gone. Sunshine is bright and abundant, and we're out on a nice walk. My name's Chad, and today I thought we could have a discussion about the importance of embracing setbacks and how we define failure in regards to how we let it shape our energy, our momentum, and our trajectory. If you're like I am and you're interested in making the most of your time and your efforts, then there may be a few takeaways helpful to everything that we're trying to do. We'll take a deep look at how we can make good habits of seeing failure as opportunity rather than a finite hard stop on what we're doing, and why making that distinction can be so beneficial to you reaching your goal. Because when we learn how to gain resilience and we lean into perseverance and we start to develop a growth mindset, we start to redefine and reshape our possibility and really unlock opportunities that we otherwise wouldn't have allowed ourselves. As a personal example, myself and my efforts songwriting and working towards building growth in that area is my primary interest. I've spent the last few weeks working on the next song that I've intended to release, and as the time's gone by, I've built the song piece by piece, every instrument, every note, making sure everything's perfect to my liking, and I finally get the song to be something that I'm really proud of, and it's getting nearer and nearer to a commercial quality product. And of course that makes me excited. But it's a lot of effort, it's long hours, little reward, but there's no stop, and I just keep going. But the big setback that I just recently had was earlier this week. Walked into my home studio and wow. Have a look at this. Pretty, but I didn't realize that it flowed as close as it does to the road that it does. Back on the topic, so I walk into the studio the other day and everything's finished except for I have to do a couple of vocal flyovers, which are just like the cool little things that you add at the end, like the Christmas tree decorations, so to speak. And when I did, I noticed inexplicably my bass track was missing, gone. I have no idea. I have no idea what I did. Sure, I did it, but I have no idea what I did. I've never done that before. That said, I put days into producing the bass guitar, and what that looks like for me is a note-by-note process. I'm not a bass guitarist, but I try to do my best every song to try to make it sound as authentic as my ears will allow me. So I spend days and days in there nitpicking each decision. The bass ends up being the backbone of my recordings, just like everybody's. So the short and sweet of it takes me a lot of time. It's completely gone, and I'm standing there with a major crisis on my hands. What makes matters worse is when I started recording, I usually have a melody and a basic lyric, and I'll record that in, build the bass out, and then from there, everything will be related to that bass. So everything's built around that, leaving the bass in this really tight position. In this particular case, in this song, everything's finished. Whole thing's finished. It's all built around that. And because I did it note by note, it's nothing that I prepared for a performance or memorized for performance sake. It's more like a sculpture where you're sculpting away at it every time. And I do not have a photographic memory, so I'm left to do the best that I can. Before I get into it, I exhaust every notion that I have that I might be able to recover the track. And once I'm sure that I can't, then I'm faced with the task of having to try to recreate a facsimile of what it was as it is disappearing from my memory. For me, this is a major setback. It's an emotional setback. It's super frustrating, and it challenges every healthy characteristic trait that I have. In a moment like that, it's important to remember that the world's not against you specifically. Everybody has a setback, no matter what they're doing. You might have somebody who's a builder. He's trying to build a house, or she's trying to build a business, and they might need to pull some paperwork from the city in order to meet some sort of a permitting. They get everything in line, and then suddenly they find out they're denied some sort of allowance to be able to begin whatever that they needed to in order to meet their own deadlines, and they're in a scramble. Or a personal relationship, put a lot of effort and years into things, have some sort of crisis or some health problem, anything. I mean, it's just life, isn't it? It's almost as if this is so obvious, but the thing that isn't obvious is being conscientious, how it is we deal with the circumstance. So that's the facts. And the takeaway is everybody experiences setbacks, but it's those people that better know how to manage them that find the success. It could be that it's the fear of failure that creates the limit in our internal framing of the idea of failure. So if you're trying to do something, you're trying to be the best you can at doing that thing, and you have a goal or a milestone that you have planned, which would demonstrate to you your capacity for doing the task, and you go towards that with everything that you can, and then you fall short, you miss it, you don't make the goal, you miss the goal, you miss the milestone, you miss the marker, and then you measure it. You measure that in a finite, absolute way. You're measuring it as a limit, as in you've reached yours, and in doing so you certainly have. But I'm suggesting that it isn't failing to hit the goal that makes failure. It's the idea that you've stopped. It isn't not reaching the goal that's finite. It's the idea that not reaching the goal is finite. It's how we interpret the idea of failure. So if you switch your perspective to where you're looking at it as an opportunity to grow, you now have redefined the circumstance. So you have a setback, or you have a challenge, maybe something far worse than my example, maybe something far worse with my recent on the mind example. And rather than say, boy, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I'm not meant for this, or I'm not cut out for that, rather than making that assessment, instead look at the idea of failure in terms of it being some sort of feedback, some information back to you that's very valuable. By taking that information and making some adjustments, you now have added a few more arrows to the quiver. You've suddenly collected yourself a few more tools for the toolbox. Because instead of seeing your failure as a finite, absolute stopping point, you've just come to reinterpret it as an obstacle that you need to surmount. You need to get around it. And you've just learned that the direction or the method that you've been trying to get around it isn't the best way to achieve the goal. So you just adjust your thinking, adjust your perspective, and re-navigate yourself, keeping a momentum and effectively perpetuating the forward trajectory that you need. And so what if you have to go around? It's this idea that you're trying to hit a destination, that you're trying to navigate through something, and that does not mean it's direct. If it was direct, everybody would do it. It's like a landmine. It's like a minefield. You come to the minefield and you have the minesweeping device, walking through there, hoping you don't get blown up. So you walk in a path, you can't go any further this direction. Failure is the minesweeping device telling you can't go any further this way, or else you will get blown up. So you adjust and you move, you navigate through it. It's not direct. It's constantly being adaptive, like I've mentioned in previous videos. The primary reason that I'm on here sharing these truths is not only just to be helpful, it's also to keep me held to account. So when I try to slither out of stepping up to the challenge that I need to, then I have all of you here saying, why are you out here espousing all of these philosophical platitudes if you fail to meet the day? And this holds me to an account. And I intend in being here in return to reciprocate that to you in a sort of symbiotic way. But how about you? We each have our challenges we have to address, and we each have our areas where we fall short. So what about you? How do you deal with the challenges? How do you deal with the setbacks? Do you drive into it, or do you buckle under? So you have to get to some point in your life where if you're progressing in your life and you're focused on bettering yourself, being a better person for yourself, for all the people around you, then you're probably gonna eventually reach that come to Jesus moment where you have to do something. You can't just sit on the pot. And for me, that is abundantly clear. I'm perfectly contented in my life, but my life doesn't include a lot of necessity to push. I'm fortunate. That said, not pushing, not having something to push to, I want to say, as a male, it emasculates. And so I'm at one of those come to Jesus moments where I have to shift. I have to shift my whole person. And in this circumstance with the song and the bass track, I had to deal with a lot of nonsense baggage and a lot of realizations in this regard. The night before last was about midnight, and I'm sitting there feeling overwhelmed with everything. And the idea of it is bad luck and just running through all of my areas of weakness and despising my inability to be at the level that inspires myself. And while I've been making a lot of wonderful progress in my life, in a lot of areas of my life recently, some of it's slower than others, and especially in my physical health, mental strength. And so in that moment, feeling sorry for myself, I got this notion to go outside and run. And it came to me like an ultimatum. And that ultimatum was, if you want to sit here and not go outside and run, then that's who it is you are. And if you go outside and run, then that's who it is you are. And wow, was I trapped. I didn't want to go outside nothing and run. But as soon as that ultimatum was in my brain, then I really didn't have a choice. And so I do think that there's some gigantic power in how you're shifting the perspective and how you're seeing things and the choices that you're making. It plays into coming into being who it is that you are. So I went outside to run, and during the run, it's just complete introspection. In every step, I'm thinking, in order for me to become who I'm supposed to be, I need to run harder than I'm running now. And if it is that I don't run harder than what I'm running now, then I'm deciding to be the other thing. And there again, I find myself deeper in this trap, this ultimatum trap. So you know the choice I had to make. So out in the dark, running as hard as I could, start to reflect on the song and the setback of it. And I started to think, all of this belly aching and all of this feeling sorry for myself is completely irrelevant. It was clear, like it just didn't matter. The frustration, espousing my frustration about it, the sense of the unfairness of it, all of that is completely irrelevant. And I realized that I don't need to have a success with the song to be who I need to be, because I could see who I needed to be in that moment. Because I realized that the irrelevance of all the belly aching, I realized that if I removed belly aching and complaining, then the person that would be left would be the person that would just manhandle the train back up onto the track. And I realized that is the goal. That's the prize. It's being that guy. That's what I'm after. It's not an external success. That is the success, is being the person that recognizes the tendency to bellyache and quickly assesses the minefield and re-navigates deliberately. And I realized that the anger and frustration that I was having was that I wasn't being that. I wasn't being that guy that was doing the thing that I wanted myself to be doing. And that was the benefit that I got. That was the opportunity that I got from having the bass track be inexplicably erased. The terrible frustration of that provided me with the mental gymnastics I needed to be able to understand that. And now my next challenge is holding this perspective for more than just this moment into the next circumstance. And that's why I'm holding myself to account with you as my friend. So we can take the setbacks as stepping stones, because we don't have a choice. Whatever we're doing, if we're really doing it, we're doing it. So we don't have a choice but to take the setbacks as a stepping stone. So before I go, don't forget, we need to do a couple of things. We need to take a look at the failure and reframe it as feedback. Reflect on that. What can you learn out of it? What can you use out of it? Everything is a tool. Imagine you're out in the bush and everything is a tool to do the next thing. Discarded something is a tool for the next thing. After you figure out what you learned from all of it, set new goals, set a new plan of attack. Taking action, even after a setback or a failure, is what sets you apart from somebody who just stays in the house, doesn't go out and get back in the race. All right, keep your head up, keep mine up. We'll talk again soon.